So thank you very much. We are back. Thank you very much. I think we're functioning. Do we want to do that addition or continue on with public?
We'll do that after public comment.
Okay, so we'll continue with public comment, and I think we have Gabrielle Gilbert with her hand up this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great.
So I'm going to let you know that I spoke to state representatives, Couture's office, a Republican who actually put in the Human Services for Youth and Children's Committee a bill that didn't make it out of committee, unfortunately, to address regulations and giving some relief from those kinds of regulations that affect building childcare. I also spoke to the chairwoman of that board or that committee, which is Representative Sen. And Representative Sen spoke about the millions of dollars that are made available for counties in childcare deserts to have access to those dollars so that you could start building something. That totality of that budget is just over $1 billion. I want to be clear that the last state legislative map, when capital requests were done and or different counties in the state received dollars, Klickitat County was blank. I cannot stress the economics about childcare. I have parents at the end of summer who see the light in the tunnel when public school reopens for some of their children to go and be somewhere and they can work stress-free. But the reality is that they are emotionally broken by organizing the lack of childcare in the county, searching for the people that don't exist to take on their children, and paying for that out of pocket. And let me be clear, my Friday schedule for babysitting is 4 families, which I am literally organizing together, and 1 family and a 5th family that reached out to me today. So the need is real. I also spoke to a woman in the library, so lovely, 3 children. And she, on the birth of her 3rd child, she had to walk away from a 6-figure job, 6 figures, because it's not that she couldn't pay for childcare, but there wasn't childcare to be had for her children. This is economics, pure and simple. It is the money that you leave off the table when you don't ask, and it is the money that you do not generate when you do not produce childcare. And I want to be abundantly clear. The lack of leadership about this subject is so blatant and so appalling. And the commentary sometimes that I've had to endure from the commissioners about this subject is beyond depressing. So I want this county to wake up to the reality that you are leaving money off the table in productivity and money off the table in not asking. So let's rethink how we're going to address this county need, make it a core function because you're leaders, and do something real that shows the community a shovel hits the ground and builds something. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabby. Back in the room, is there anyone who would like to come forward and do public comment this morning? Mr. Barta, good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. I speak on my own behalf, Dave Barta Goldendale. I see on the agenda today, later you have discussion and potential action on a moratorium for large-scale battery storage systems. I encourage you to place a moratorium in effect to begin the process so that a public hearing and more information can be gathered. And if it's possible, to also implement interim zoning within that time period. I think that would give the Planning Commission a little bit of extra time to fully do the work and come back with a recommendation. And I think the work of the Planning Commission is pivotal in this case. It's so to speak, the voice of the citizens in general on how that's going to happen. So thank you for putting that on your agenda and considering it. There's any number of things you can look up about obviously there's more information anybody can know about battery storage systems, about types of batteries and different ways things can be done and whether they should be done. So I encourage you to vote for that and implement that in the near term so that we can begin the process of dealing with a larger scale issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back online, raise your hand if you'd like to give public comment this morning. One more time online, is there anybody who'd like to speak this morning? If not, we'll give you a couple of minutes and back in the room. Anybody else want to come forward? I know, Mr. Smith, you always wait. Back online? If not, we're running a little behind because of our technical, so maybe we'll consider moving forward. Still no? Okay, back online?
2662.
There we go, 2662.
Good morning, commissioners. This is Tracy McCune from Lyle, Washington. So I just had a few points today because I've missed quite a few commissioner meetings. So I apologize if any of these have been brought forward that I didn't know about. But one of them was the PA system at the fairgrounds. I saw a meeting in May, I believe, of 2021 that there was a new PA system put in the fairgrounds, and possibly there's a system there that nobody knows about. I don't know. But I just wanted to bring that forward. And then secondly, Lori, you had gave a update on the transfer station, but you didn't mention anything about the battery powered trucks. I know when the transfer station or the Republic had done their update, they mentioned that they were going to try a new program with battery operated trucks. And I just wondered how that was going and if you could maybe give an update on that. And then the other thing was on 6/25/24, June 25th of 2024, Richard Foster gave an update. The timestamp is 1:30.22. And in that update, he mentioned something about there was $2.5 million left over from the emergency declaration of 2020, and that he felt that that could be used for the airport. And I wondered if that was the last grant last Tuesday that was given to the airport. Mr. Anderson had said there's no way that that could happen, and he didn't say that. But I, again, checked with Keaton, who works for Richard Foster, and he also said that there was that money that was going to be allotted to the airport. So I just like to see how that works, how an emergency money for an emergency can be reallotted to the airport. And then the other questions I have are probably for Mr. Van Cleve. And I wanted to know if there's been any COVID money received in grants in 2024, or if he expects to receive any COVID money in grants for 2024 for any departments, or are we done with COVID? And then the only other thing was the town hall. So I know you guys are getting done kind of early on Tuesdays, and you're rarely doing the Thursday workshops. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in doing a town hall before Mr. Anderson and Mr. Christopher leave office. That would be a good idea for a citizen, so we can have some back and forth. And I'd appreciate it if you did one. So if you could touch on that, if that's in the future or not. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Tracy. Back in the room. Nope. And online, has anyone else raised their hand this morning? No one? We'll give it a couple of seconds. Last call for online this morning for Zoom comments. No one? So we'll go ahead and close public comment for today, and we'll move to commissioner comments. And who would like to start this morning?
Well, that was short.
Yeah, it was.
If you'd like, I can start.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gabrielle, thank you as always for continuing to bring childcare and the lack of childcare in Klickitat County to the forefront. We have continued these conversations for years. And I always appreciate your zest and your zeal, and what you actually currently provide out in the public. We've continued this with this child care committee, and I hope that you continue to be engaged in that. And with Mr. Travis Coulter and his legislation, it's sad to see that that doesn't move forward. As I've always said, it's easy to get money to build something. It's much more difficult to get money to operate and run something. And when you get the money to build a childcare facility, there's nothing worse than having it not be able to be managed and operated because you can't afford to operate it because it loses money every year. And we've talked extensively about we are entering into the budget discussions starting, I believe, next Thursday. And that with that, that will be what our Thursday meetings are for, Tracy, for the next couple of months. And I hope everybody tunes in to understand where we are as a county budget wise and where we will be prioritizing the county's dollars. Mr. Barta, I understand that you guys finished the critical areas ordinance last night, and I just wanted to say congratulations to the Planning Commission on making their way through that. And from here, it's up to the Board of County Commissioners to set the next set of priorities. I know we wanted to start in Q3 on the comprehensive plan update, and that's where we started this year. And we also have a lot of other things for the planning commission to look at, and battery storage, I'm sure, and solar is going to be one of those on that grand list. So thank you as always. I know you guys have been putting in a lot of time, and you went through the CAO with a fine tooth comb. And Tracy, I was told that the PA system at the fairgrounds that wasn't working during the rodeo was due to some user error, and there was a um, amplifier that wasn't turned on. I don't know about any issues during the county fair, but I do believe that they did get a new system installed in 2021 as well. As for the money for the airport, that was dollars, and I'll repeat myself, dollars that the KSAPETA, the Klickitat County Public Economic Development Authority, using $0.09 that can only be used for economic development purposes, is being put towards getting that phase 2 completed and the hangar for the college built. And we've not talked about ever using emergency COVID dollars. The COVID money technically has run out quite a while ago. If anything, the federal government tried to claw back as much COVID dollars as they could. Klickitat County, we allocated those dollars to a multitude of things. And so we have dollars that we didn't spend on other projects that COVID dollars were used on, and that's our available cash. But none of that is being used for the airport as far as I know. So I'm not sure where the disconnect was with people's understanding of how that money was being used. As for a town hall, I have no problem doing a town hall. I try to go to the community council meetings and get there and talk to people in their communities about the issues that they have. I know on the east end of the county, there's not a lot of community councils out here. And so us putting something on is a great idea. And I would state that it's probably a good time to have a town hall meeting. Knowing that we don't have all the answers to every question on the tip of our tongues at any given time. And with that, there's not a whole lot else to respond to.
Thank you. Mr. Christopher.
Thank you. So I'll touch on the PA system. I've been informed there's 2 PA systems at the fair. One is in the fair board office that kind of controls the grounds and lets the kids know when a cow is showing or whatnot. And then there's another PA system for the rodeo area. And like Commissioner Anderson said, it sounds like there was some technical issues with somebody forgetting to turn the amplifier on. And that's what I know of PA systems. Town hall. Yeah, I've always been in favor of the town hall. I'm kind of been frustrated that the board has chosen not to do. But now it sounds like Commissioner Anderson might be back in the opinion of town hall. So with that, now is not the appropriate time, but once we get done with citizen comment, I will be asking the board to add that to our business agenda for a discussion today on when we can schedule the next town hall. And that's all I had. Thank everybody else for their comments.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. Gabrielle, thank you for not wavering on your commitment. I really appreciate it working on projects in the past. I know it takes years sometimes to keep pushing and it's frustrating, but thank you for standing there and filling the gap. And thank you for going to the state and getting these answers. It's another view for me. It's hope. And I do hope that my schedule will rearrange and change upcoming that I can reengage with the Child Care Committee and start being involved. So we'll see where that goes in the future. And Mr. Barta, again, thank you for Planning Commission. We all owe you guys a huge thanks for getting together and doing the work you're doing. And you have a lot more coming from us as far as I'm concerned. And I appreciate each and every personal view and work that you guys dedicate to that. Battery storage for me is a critical issue. And I hope today that we can get through with a form of getting responsible over the battery issue. And I think, Tracy, that Mr. Christopher and Mr. Anderson answered your questions for the day. So that is it for the day. And we'll continue back to our regular session. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would like to add two things to the business agenda. Number one being the emergency declaration resolution for the to rescind the emergency declaration, as well as a discussion on town hall under new business.
Do we have a second?
Had to get my mouse in my hand. I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. No payroll.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 5 items.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $244,725.20 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $897,459.12 for the date ending August 19th, 2024.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Commissioner miscellaneous reports, updates, and comments. Mr. Christopher, would you like to start this morning? Do you have anything for the record?
I do not have anything.
Okay. And Mr. Anderson?
Yes, so I've been attending all of the meetings on the green energy project, the tax shift, as well as our assessor and treasurer have been on those meetings. Most of those meetings, we've had 3 of them so far. Most everything so far has been education, primarily for the people on the west end of the state who are not as versed in it as we are. And we are seeing, I think we're getting a lot of education accomplished. The last meeting we had, it was people from other states, commissioners and state representatives and that have been dealing with these tax shift issues and how they assess these green energy projects from the East Coast to the Midwest and how that's all going. And so that was a good education of how it's done elsewhere. You know, each state has completely different laws and rules with taxes and taxation and whether or not they're considered personal property or improved property and how they do it. A lot of the discussion also revolved around how they community benefit agreements and whether or not like they're required and how that works all the way from Oregon to New York. And so there's a lot of things. And so with that, it's kind of we're doing our best to try to keep the lines very clear that we're talking about the tax shift. We're not talking about green energy. Is it good? Is it bad? Wherever else. It's actually how do we fix and amend the tax shift issues? The big thing that the state legislature needs to know is this pennies on the dollar that each individual resident is it's affecting them, or is this dollars or tens of dollars or hundreds or thousands of dollars? So that they can gauge how big of an actual issue it is. And the problem is, it's really hard to come up with numbers, right? Because you can say as one project is depreciating down, you've also got something else that comes online that's new, and then you've got a junior taxing district that goes out and levies more money. And so piecing that all apart is like a jigsaw puzzle that you're doing backwards in the dark blind. And so it's difficult for the assessors, but they are working with Wasac to try to figure out how much of an actual impact it is on the individuals for areas like our county where we have a large percentage of our assessed value as personal property. Because this was never thought of, that personal property could be such a huge percentage of the overall assessed value of the county. And so I can't thank the treasurer and our assessor enough for being a part of these discussions and being involved. It really shows a full frontal effort. The other one that I'm serving on is the revenue discussion and issue. That was one of the priorities, legislative priorities that came out. And so with that one, the big counties, we looked at all the different possible revenue sources from REIT to excise taxes to B&O taxes, and we've had 2 meetings so far. And after the first meeting, it was pretty much found that, the only thing that really moves the dial in terms of revenue for a lot of these counties is the 1% limit. I didn't know, but back in the day, it used to be up to 6%. The county could increase revenues up to 6%. It was a vote of the people to make it 1%. And then from then on, these counties, some of these West Side counties, they're burning through their available cash balance, their actual reserves, their cash reserves, $10 million a year right now. And you figure that's just in their general fund, $10 million. For reference, our entire general fund is only 18 million. So they're burning through almost our entire amount in a year. And it's getting to the point where a lot of these West Side counties are going to have to make, and East Side counties, the small East Side counties, it's affecting not to that kind of degree, but the percentages are pretty close. And the thing that most of the commissioners were brought up is that anywhere between 70% and 78% of their general funds are being used on public safety. And, the simple answer is we either change the 1% or we have to go out for public safety levies. And that's about the only option because that's where all the dollars are getting spent is on public safety. And nobody wants to see the kind of cuts that are going to require when you see that kind of dollars that have to come off because you can't just take it from the road department because it's completely different dollars. All of our funds are so restricted in what we use them. And it's getting to the point where it's an emergency. And even these big West Side counties are taking this very, very seriously. So those are 2 of the different groups that I'm serving on, the meetings I've been attending. And I just wanted to give you guys an update that while there's a little bit of, because the discussion on the 1% and like even making the 1% go to 3% would, just to try to keep up with inflation, if you're able to, would have such a huge impact. But the legislature, in the last few times, they throw that one out. And so there's some major issues. The other one is You know, with the votes in November, with the carbon tax and the money you know, some of those dollars are getting funneled down to the counties. And if that gets rescinded, these west side counties that are using some of these dollars and east side counties will be even more severely impacted on their budgets. So because, you know, a lot of what we do is soft money. You know, we need grants in order to keep the same number of staff that we have to manage these grants and to do the good things that the citizenry is expecting and requesting. And when those dollars go away, those jobs, you know, you can't afford to keep those positions. Thank you. So, any questions?
No, very interesting though. I appreciate you working on it and keeping up on it. I'm glad to hear that there's a combined effort with the West Side for education about sometimes they just don't realize how their choices impact the East Side.
And, you know, some of the west side, you know, they're concerned about offshore wind. And so a lot of the people that are serving on this, they don't actually have anything for green energy, but they see it coming, whether it's battery storage, wind, or solar on, you know, big department stores. There's a lot of things that they are concerned about.
Well, and the percentages, like you were talking about the smaller taxing districts and stuff, what's unfortunate is we keep having impacts and this has a life of its own and it keeps going. And we're fixing it backwards while we're suffering the impacts. And it's making it very, very tough. So thank you for that. My update is fairly simple. I do my daily work, but one of the bigger things I can say is I think we'll have a fire update from our director here soon, I believe. And I think they're doing a great job now on the radio, in the papers, and all of the public sources. They seem to have gotten all their efforts together with good public information coming out all the time. I've been happy now, not hearing it firsthand, but actually just hearing radio and the other updates now. They've got it on board and they're keeping us updated, I think, which I really appreciate. My microphone went wacky for a minute. The other thing that was a good thing for me, yesterday I had a visit with Yakima Nation, and they've been approved for their update project for the Glenwood Fish Hatchery. After all these years, it's finally on board, it's funded, they have the plans and they're moving. And what that's going to mean is 1 million more Chinook in our Klickitat River system. And a lot of those will be spring Chinook. So a lot of fishermen ought to be happy about that. So.
Madam Chair, I was handed a request. We need to make a corrected motion from last week's payroll warrant certification payment approvals. And that's the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $244,725.20 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $897,459.12 for the date ending August 12th, 2024.
Okay.
And then a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $1,853,992.36 for the date ending August 19th, 2024.
I will second those corrected motions.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you for that update.
Thank you, ladies.
So I think we're a little bit early for Public Works. Anything else for the good of the order?
Just that I know I've been getting a lot of messages. People's phones have been going off and emergency notifications going off. And I just wanted to thank our emergency management department for getting messages out on Facebook and letting everyone know when Yakima County and someone draws a box wrong on the system, and we all get notifications that we are getting the information out there as quickly as possible and it's being disseminated so that people are not freaking out. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work of our emergency management staff, and also say I'm sorry for those people who are wondering where some of these places are that are in Yakima County and how big is this fire if it's affecting me and I'm getting the emergency notification. I know technology is great for getting information out there, but technology can also be the bane of existence when somebody draws a box wrong on a computer and half the state finds that they're under an emergency 3-level evacuation.
That one made me pull my car over yesterday and see what something. It's like, oh.
And I could tell where the line was because I was seeing it, come across my Facebook, but it didn't hit my phone. And then once I drove right past a certain line on the map, then both phones started going off.
Really?
It's like, okay, Burgoyne Mountain was the spot.
Interesting. It's been a tough technology time for everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Christopher.
Thank you. I have a question for Commissioner Anderson on the 1%, 3% tax. That board committee, whatever you're working on there with Wasac, are we still the only Republican county in the state to be pushing to raise that to 3%, or are there other Republican counties that have joined our 2-to-1 vote to raise that to 3%?
I believe there's no votes being taken right now. So this is just
Right, but are you hearing any other Republican counties in favor of that?
I'm hearing, well, there's not any two commissioners, so you can't say there's another county that's in favor of it. It's there are the members that are serving on the committee that have been speaking in favor of it, but also in the same time saying that this is a necessary, evil in order to keep these counties whole. But at the same time, they're also saying we need to find a different way because we've tried to skin this cat multiple times and the legislature keeps throwing it back in our face. There was a great amount of discussion on revenue sharing, whether it be from the cannabis dollars or getting more of the our money from DNR for logging operations. And while all those are great ideas in order to gain more revenues, the consensus of the body is none of it will move the lever enough so that it actually fills anybody's holes, especially the big holes. It might help Skamania County, Cowlitz County, and even us by making some changes to the dollars that come through timber tax revenues. But it won't help a lot of the bigger counties. And so those discussions are still going on. We have not taken a straw poll. This has still been in here's some of our ideas, here's the direction that we're going. And so there will be another update from Mike Hoover, the contract lobbyist, at the next one based on everything that he heard this last go around.
Thank you. Can you notify me when those future meetings take place? I would like to listen.
Sure. And you can also, they are recorded. So if you'd like, you can contact Paul Jewell and he can get you the recording.
Thank you.
And the other one that I made at this last meeting that was, primarily for our county is that we need to look at, and there was some discussion this last go around, Paul, we had to go back and forth, is that on a lot of these projects that would truly move the needle for us, even on the short-term builds, it's when a large corporation that comes in and puts a $300 million project in the ground, they pay sales tax, but then they get a good portion of not all of that sales tax refunded to them. And so our treasurer might be sitting on a couple $1 million or so in sales tax revenue that's just sitting in an account, which granted we are getting a little bit of interest on, or a lot of interest on, but we actually can't budget it. We can't use it because the companies can come back and request a refund of that sales tax. And so my statement has always been, if the legislature wants to give away the state's portion of the sales tax, go ahead and do that, but quit giving away our portion. It's not going to make or break these companies if they decide to move here, but it does have a huge impact on the county. And so I wanted that to be one of the recommendations going forward, and things that are occurring within our county, that sales taxes are being collected. Go ahead if the state wants to give it back. And then the other question that we came from that is, well, if the state wants to give it all back, then at least the state should reimburse us for what we gave back. And that was a discussion on which direction we could go there. I know there's been some legislation recently for the green energy projects that gave the state's portion of the sales the tax away, but it kept the county portion. And I was hoping that we could have an easy, clear fix that would positively impact rural county when it comes to that. So that's part of the discussion that'll be coming up at the next meeting as well. So we are trying to turn over every rock and stone for revenue that isn't coming off the backs of the citizens.
Is that it for you, Mr. Christopher?
Good enough. Yeah, I'll have to watch the recordings.
Okay, thank you. So if we're good, we could move forward with the road department.
They're here now.
Great. A few minutes early, but thank you for coming down. Thank you, sir. You're the picture guy.
No, I forgot. something.
Thank you.
We'll have to get that next week.
Or you can just send me a message.
I did forget that.
Good morning.
Good morning. So yes, I did forget that. Sorry about that. It's a little bit hopping around with the fair. And we're kind of working on things in the jail right now too. So we have a couple pay estimates on the consent agenda. One to Hicks for a white plastic edge line, the amount of $229,054.40. That is 100% federally funded. So that is not paid for by the Klickitat County taxpayers. And Midway Underground in the amount of $489,974.32. That is also paid by state tax dollars, gas tax dollars, not county tax dollars. So those are both grant funded projects, and that's all we have on that. So
on construction, the Bickleton area paving, we still waiting for a couple punch list items to be cleaned up, and that project will be complete. Sundale Highway 8, I handed you guys some pictures. It's current progress. Contractor's still working on some excavations and embankment, and as you see, placing base rock on some of it. It's starting to look like a road. Road design, Sunnyside Road overlay, getting closer to that first review of the project, so we can get that out to bid this fall. Bridge repair bundles, consultants working diligently on the environmental processes and getting those designs put together. Bickleton overlay, still working with WashDOT. The funding paperwork should be before the board next week. White plastic edge lines, this is the future one, not the current one we're working on. The draft of that contract is being reviewed internally. Curb warning signs, staff still working on field staking and estimates for that. Road safety plan update, the RFQ does go out this week in the papers for advertisement. That's what I got, Jeff.
okay. Of course, now that I noticed, we've been having trouble with our printers wanting to work. So we ended up printing an old version of our last week's version. I mean, the date is right, but that's about the only thing. Everything else is kind of changed. So to some degree, we are grading a little bit in Bickleton area. We're cleaning up ditches and replacing signs from the fire. And then we're hoping to start patching on Matson in preparation of our BST. West End, we're patching roads in Hewsum and Trout Lake area. That part's still good. The upcoming facilities events, Sale Barn is complete. That's off there. Superior Court hasn't changed. That's still scheduled. the main events are scheduled as they were last week, which is countertops August 26th to 28th, floor covering September 13th to 15th, and doors and trims September 30th to October 4th. Fair went well. It was busy, but it did go well as far as our side of the things went. Even though, you know, there was a storm and everything else, but all the grounds came out. We've got a few light bulbs go out, but that's nothing uncommon. Jail vents, the work has started. We're about a third of the way done. So we've been working with the sheriff's office, working through that. Beer garden bleachers, the only thing left to do is to finish the trim on the backside. We will also be taking off. If you saw the beer garden bleachers, it had a sunscreen on it to actually reduce the sun. That is removable and will be removed because we don't want to buy one of those every year. So that will be removed and put away. And we are still assisting with the fire. I'm going to find out about our sand and we'll probably pick that up in Trout Lake. Other than that, I think that's it, unless there's something else that I'm forgetting. We're working with FEMA and a lot of other things going on. And that's all we have. And I did forget to give you the staffing that and who we have in different areas. I will have that for next week.
Okay.
It sounds like our new barn got the storm test done on it.
It did. The new barn worked very well.
Good.
People were very happy with the new barn.
Yeah.
They did a good job of filling it, and it worked very nice. It was nice and cool in there. So yes, everything worked out well.
And the dedication was nice that they did for her.
I heard. I didn't see it.
It was
but I
a
heard
good
it was
story
good.
about her life and what she left for that barn. It was nice. So I'll think about her every time I visit the fair.
That's
So,
good.
yeah,
That's
it
good.
was nice. And the fire, I just want to tell everybody, thank you for all the coordination between all the different agencies and stuff. And I think we ought to have a talk coming up in the future. I know there was a lack of signage and some things in some places that you don't carry, but yet we might need in the future for those types of emergencies. So maybe going forward, we'll look at those things, which department needs to create them and where we're going to store them. And
I mean, we can have them made because we would use those on rare occasions.
Mhm.
Like I said, if we close a road, it's usually because it's a real issue.
Mhm.
And people aren't going to be driving through. The road is non-existent.
Yeah.
Our contractors close the roads quite regularly, but they provide the signs.
Mhm.
So we don't actually own the signs, but the local access only is probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, in events like fires, floods, and even for us, it might not be a bad idea when we're chip sealing and stuff like that to keep bypassers out of our construction zones.
Yeah,
So,
and during those times for theft, and it helps deter some of the things. I don't know if the public knows either that there was an emergency flood warning issued because of that storm for Trout Lake and Glenwood. So all the departments cooperated in getting everybody informed that that might happen because if the burn scar that had happened couldn't carry the capacity, it was going to bring all that water down.
Mhm.
And so our departments dropped off sand and sandbags and let them all get ready, and we missed that bullet.
yes,
So
thank
we were-
goodness we didn't have
Yeah.
to use it,
Yeah, so that was lucky.
but we are prepared. We do have them in each of our shops. So
Been one thing on top of another.
it has.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you guys do. Casey, did you have something? I think we have the time if Casey could come up for a couple of minutes. I know you did, and I didn't call on you, and I should have snuck you in there. They got here just early enough. Thank you.
Well, we received some resignations in a couple different departments. So I'm here to get 3 different verbal to posts. So the first one is Department of Emergency Management. They received a resignation from a current communications officer who has been out on leave. And they are not going to be able to return. So we are looking for verbal to post for a casual communication officer in training to start trying to fill that position and get them through the training process and get that filled again.
Yeah, as soon as possible.
Yes, perfect. The next one is in the natural resources economic development. They received a resignation notice from the office manager. And so that position will be vacant. It's a current position, it's budgeted, and so we're looking to get verbal to post for that position, the office manager one position, steps 1 through 3.
Yeah, I'm good.
And then the last one will be for the building inspection department. They received a resignation notice from the current permit specialist position. So that box is the permit technician or permit specialist. And so they're looking to post for the permit technician position. That is the base level position. So it'll be permit technician, grade 35, steps 1 through 3. And they're looking for the verbal to post for that position. It's budgeted, current position, nothing new. So,
Good. Okay. I'm good.
okay. Yeah. Mr. Christopher, have any questions?
We didn't unmute, so, oh, there he is.
Questions? No. Some of these emergency management, I'm fine. The other two, I would personally, I'm a no. I think we need to hold off until we see what our budget looks like. Because I would hate to hire somebody and then lay them off a month later. So the emergency management to me is public health and safety, and it needs to be filled ASAP. The other two, I would say hold off until we get at least a little ways through our budget to know what we have to work with. But if you have two votes is all you need.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the first and final pay estimate for the white plastic edge line CRP 368 in the amount of $229,054.40.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve pay estimate number 3 for the Sundale Old Highway 8 CRP 359 in the amount of $489,947.32.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would ask that we add to the agenda under unfinished business, unless we have time now, an update on the WSU agreement as well as the coroner position.
Would we like to wait until Mr. Van Cleve is in the room?
I just
Or-
hoping that we could add it to the agenda wherever
Okay.
you feel you're the
Yeah.
chair.
I think unfinished business is fine.
So that would be this afternoon.
Yeah. On corner and WSU?
Does that work for Commissioner Christopher?
It's fine.
Thank you. So we have Rob at 10:30, but we have about 20 minutes. Sharon. Okay. Mr. Van Cleve, would you like to let Sharon go ahead of you, or we're early?
I can't go 10:30, Madam Chair.
That's right. Would that be
I'm fine with Sharon going first.
an update from Senior Services Director Sharon Carter? Good morning. Thank you for being patient and hanging out with us.
Well, and I actually also have Jennifer with WAGAP here as well. But what I wanted to talk about was I'd been contacted by the Washington State Department of Agriculture about funding that they have that's available specific for hunger relief, emergency meals, that they are allotting to each of the counties within Washington state, and specifically Klickitat County, the amount is $16,481.72. And the desire is, so that what they want to do is to do a subrecipient contract agreement with the county. They can't do it with a different entity. It's very specific to the counties. But then the counties can decide how they want those funds utilized and can address specific areas need or specialty, but we have to move on it. Because the funding is funding that's passed through from its ARPA coronavirus recovery funds through the federal government and then Washington State. And the money does need to be spent by June 30th. So I did talk with the representative with the Washington State Department of Agriculture regarding this contract. They sent over the template that I did send to the PA's office. They approved as to form to just see if there were any flags there. And then specifically it's addressing getting, food to citizens of Klickitat County. And the reason Senior Services is concerned about that is with our elderly and disabled clients that are a priority, that we see them struggling more with all the different increase in costs. So anytime there's money on the table, we want to grab at it. There's no match required for the county, and they do allow for administrative. They're trying to make it as simple as possible in terms of managing the grant and funds. And it is specifically, again, looking at spending that money within the county and, with farms and vendors and services. So I'd called Jennifer specifically because WAGAP is who we partner with on food needs with folks in Klickitat County. And definitely they already have agreements and contracts in place with different vendors and also know where the needs are. We are often working together to get, food resources from them out to citizens and connecting our citizens to those food sources. And so I think it would be a great partnership to work again with WAGAP to carry out this, to use those funds. And Jennifer definitely indicated that that was something that they would be interested in doing and could do so with, relative ease because they already have, staff, volunteers, and systems in place. Specifically, we were talking about, again, elderly, disabled, and the mobile markets that are getting out to other areas of the county. So my question to the board would be, if the board is willing to enter into this agreement, this contract, you do have to name a contract manager within the subrecipient of the county, and that would be something that I'm willing to take on in my department. As we're very familiar with working with federal and state money, very specifically even coronavirus, hunger relief funds. And so it wouldn't be an extreme burden to be able to manage that. I just want to make sure that we don't forego this $16,000. They even indicated there could be more because there may be some counties that don't choose to participate because it's not worth it in terms of the amount. So it could actually be a larger amount that we could receive. But currently the amount they've quoted is just over $16,000. So I wanted to find out if the board was okay to move forward with this. And if you had any questions of me or any feedback from WAGAP in terms of what they're seeing as the need to in Klickitat County.
Go ahead.
How much do you figure it's going to cost to administer this $16,000? The grant.
So one of the requirements, they said that at least 50% needs to go to actual food distribution. When I was talking to Jennifer last week, she said easily they would be able to have 75% go directly to actual food purchase. There is a basic budget that they've asked, that has salaries, benefits, pass-through rewards, food purchases, distribution and transportation, indirect costs and other. And again, they're trying to make it as simple as possible. It is a cost reimbursement with a limit, which is what we're used to. We can invoice monthly for that and then get reimbursement. Again, I don't see that it would be terribly cumbersome for my department to manage that.
Mr. Christopher?
Only question I had was, is there any administrative reimbursement for your department, or is this only administrative reimbursement for WAGAP?
We would include a little bit for my department. Again, it wouldn't be a lot because I don't foresee it being terribly burdensome. But we would have, because just in terms of invoice preparation.
Right. Yeah, whatever covers expenses is all I'm looking for.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for your partnership. Seems like it answered all of my questions that you had. You've vetted this out pretty darn well. So I'm thankful. Mr. Anderson.
Fine with it.
Okay,
As long as
so
it's
good.
got the time,
Yeah. And
Okay, then
we're
I'll
covered financially.
I'll work then with, WSDA and WAGAP, and of course we'll get the agreement, the contract, the specifics in that'll go again for that the PA's office indicated was an issue. They approved us to form, and so we'll just add the specifics and then specifically in putting me as contract manager with senior services for that.
That's great.
Okay.
Nothing else, Mr. Christopher? I guess you're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for coming all the way up.
Well, we can't go until 12:30, but we do have some stuff under new business.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
Madam Chair, we have before the Board of County Commissioners in the matter of extending and rescinding an emergency declaration for the purpose of the response to the threats to the public safety and property due to the continued extreme fire conditions. We have a resolution that a quorum of the Board of County Commissioners voted to continue the declaration of an emergency resolution number 07624 due to the Williams Mine fire, continued extreme fire conditions and public safety radio site damage, as well as system equipment failure that constituted an immediate threat to the public safety and private property. That said, the declaration of emergency is rescinded effective Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. That had better not be making me have to extend it.
Turn that on.
I would move to adopt the resolution.
I would second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dan, were you an aye on that?
My battery's running low for some reason, even though the computer's plugged in, so I'm gonna be under my desk for a minute figuring it out.
Okay. All right, but that was an aye. Thank you so much. So motion passes. Thank you.
The only other thing we have, Madam Chair, is discussion of a town hall meeting and what you would like on it and how you'd like it run and when. Who would like to lead off? I asked it to be included because it was brought up. I know I'm gonna be in Washington DC in September on the bridge stuff. So I won't be here the 9th through the 11th. And then what would you like on a discussion?
Well, I'm glad we're getting into that fall season. I think children are returning to school and people are thinking more about going back to work and going to meetings. So it works. This is a timely conversation for me to set a time to have that. And it sounds like after the 11th of September, possibly, Mr. Christopher. And then Tracy McEwen had asked on Tuesdays, we could look at a Tuesday that we all stay over and hold one here again, or we could choose to go to a different place in the county. That's going to be a discussion we have to have. And as far as, I don't know if the public is looking for specific conversations or if they're just looking for an open forum with us. Mr. Christopher.
I would always in favor of open forum and not screening questions. I think the public will be just fine. I am not worried about the public. I will say whenever you guys can get it into the schedule is good. But with that, Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, especially Tuesdays, are very complicated. So if there was any way to do it on a different day, that's one less meeting I have to cancel. But I mean, until we start looking at dates, I can't really tell you what's on my calendar until we was the date I heard after September 11th.
I was just mentioning that I'm going to be in DC from the 9th to the 11th on the bridge. So,
And looking at advertising timeframes and stuff, probably the last 2 weeks in September somewhere would be good.
Well, the first week in September for me is wide open, including Tuesdays. And then that is literally the only Tuesday that I don't have outside meetings and whatnot. Now, granted, I can always just not go to my nonprofit meeting or something if we're having a town hall. But you know, if we could do it on a different day, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's 5 days in a week. We can also do them on Thursday since we'll be here for budget anyway on Thursday. That would be my ask. But again, I don't whatever date you pick, I will be attending as long as I can.
um,
Do you have preferences?
what about Thursday, the 19th? That would give us
Do we have
plenty of
anything?
time to advertise.
Our clerk is gone during that time. We're short-staffed. It's a scheduled leave. 26th, Thursday, the 26th.
Uh, I can do Thursday, the 26th.
Mr. Christopher, Thursday, the 26th.
That works for me too.
I'm good with that.
And then next question is, what are we gonna do for location?
We will let the radio stations know and let the newspaper know and publish it on our Facebook page.
And hold it here because of recording.
And I'm fine holding it here, or we could do it all online. It's all depends on what you guys decide. And then is there going to
In
be?
person and online, I think is good.
Okay, in person and online.
Mhm.
And then is there going to be a certain topics that we can prepare for, or is it going to be wide open? What would we like?
I would recommend that we do in person and online. I would recommend that we rotate open to any topic, but we rotate which commissioner answers first, second, and third. So if I'm first on this question, I'm second on the next question, and then I'm third on the third question. That way everybody gets their turn at being the first to answer, the second to answer, and the third to answer. It makes it totally fair.
That work for you, Mr. Anderson? Any suggestions?
I'm fine with it all.
I'm fine with that too. So
And
in
then I know
person,
some of the questions that people might answer, we may not have the exact answer for if we weren't given the question beforehand, but we can always get their name and information, get the answer, and then contact them afterwards with
sure.
proper answers. So I'm not worried about surprise questions.
Yes. Correct. And it will be in person and on Zoom here in our building. Recorded time. What do you think on time? What's your suggestion?
I would say we start at 6 PM.
Okay, 6 to 8 or?
I would say 6 to 8. Last one we did was 6 to 7, and it was very quick.
Mhm. I'm good.
So Thursday, the 26th of September from 6 to 8, is that correct?
Correct.
Just for clarification, if we do it from 6 to 8, if they stop talking at 6:30 and 7 o'clock.
I don't know if you could hear Elise. If we bill at 6 to 8 and the questions stop at 7:30, then we still have to be here until 8 and wait.
Well, you can always bill it as you can always bill
You
it
can
as
do
6
6
to
to
7,
7,
and we
and
will
always
extend
extend.
until 8 if necessary.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
6 to 7 with possible extension.
Yeah, 6 to 7, that if the questions keep coming, we'll extend until 8.
And did you want to have any moderation of it, like a moderator to, or do you want to
Okay.
leave this thing wide open?
Yep.
Let her go.
I think we're okay. No,
Is that a no on the moderator?
pardon me?
Was that a no on the moderator?
Correct, unless you have a suggestion.
That means the chair's.
No, I'm open. I don't
good.
need a moderator to screen questions, so.
I'm
I
good.
think we got a lot of pushback last time because there were questions that did not get asked, and I don't know. While I don't believe the moderator was screening questions to, control the narrative, that was the implication from the public. So I would like to not do that this time.
Yep. That's great. Any other questions about that? Any suggestions, questions, anything we need?
We've got a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
If we work on finalizing it, we can continue to narrow anything
Sure.
down.
Okay. Good. So you'll have to figure out the advertising dates and, okay, and let us know. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, Mr. King. You have 4 minutes before Mr. Van Cleve's in the hot seat, so.
What?
Thank
Take your time. Thank you.
Anything I can do for you. Yeah, I can answer questions if you have any, or just
Yeah.
kind of give some the latest on the Williams mine fire.
Sure, that'd be great.
As of this morning's report, that fire is at 11,696 acres. And now 10% contained. We still have level 1 and level 2 evacs in place for Trout Lake. And they're reporting that the cost of the fire to date, as of end of day yesterday, was $13.6 million. Yeah, and any other questions about that fire from start to finish? Or I know we've been giving you lots of information, and once the complex incident management team took over, they started providing information directly. So
In the last couple of days with any wind shifts, was it busier over on the 23 side?
no, they had a small spot
Okay.
over on the west side of the 23. They were able to get on it really quickly and get that handled
Okay.
without any issues. It didn't even really register on the radar.
Our weather looks good upcoming for a little while for them.
Yes,
Mhm.
and the high humidity and rainfall that we had over the weekend was very helpful for that fire. It also created other fires, but none of them took off and became significant. We still have, there's one just south of the county line on the reservation off of Highway 97, the east side, that's still being reported, but BIA is handling that. There was another one that was big enough to be logged north of Glenwood in the Hellroaring Canyon area.
Hmm.
And so it got a name, but it has been mitigated completely at this point. There were several other lightning fire starts across the county, especially on the west side, up over Burdoyne Mountain and Snowden, and then also in the East County from that severe lightning storm that traveled through on Saturday evening. Yeah, and affected a whole lot of vendors and any portable shelters at the fairgrounds were disturbed, if not completely destroyed on Saturday evening.
That was an exciting event for everybody.
It was,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it came so quick.
Well, it had been predicted for days and
I know, but all of a sudden it really did what they
And-
predicted.
yeah, the forecasters got it right
Yes.
within an hour. And when the wind started to gust, it hit hard and fast.
Yeah.
And then it was followed by rain, hail, and lightning across the county.
Mhm.
So
I saw some pictures of some really big hail up in Trout Lake.
yes.
Good size.
And as you mentioned earlier, the thing we were on watch for, emergency management and the fire incident management team, was the flash flooding.
Mhm.
And so he'd already had Public Works stage dump truck full of sand and the sandbags that we supply for the community's use at the Trout Lake Fire Hall. And we're waiting for that. That did not materialize for them. We actually got more rain here than they did there, which is unusual.
Mhm.
And we're also waiting for Thursday and Friday. There's another rain event that's forecast up to a half an inch on that burn scar. So we're watching that for flooding potential.
Okay.
So I'll be working with Public Works Director again to make sure that those things are in place, and if it's necessary, notify the community that it's available for them to use.
Okay. Well, fast and furious.
It has been an extraordinary 4 weeks for
It
us.
has. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thanks for everything. So, Mr. Van Cleve, with an update on the jail. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for waiting until 10:30.
Mr. Rob, can I have you pull that mic a little closer? I could kind of barely hear Jeff, so I'm hoping we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for waiting until 10:30. I got a little sidetracked at the end of last week and couldn't confirm that I notified the union of the update today, or the corrections officer. I did that this morning, but I didn't want to go early. And I apologize to them if I didn't give them more notice than this morning. Today should be a fairly quick update, though I think there's some important things to note. So this morning I sent you the applications received to date with my thoughts, and have asked you to get back to me with your thoughts. I'd like to go ahead and set up interviews. The first posting is September 1st, or the first review. We can go ahead and get these set up, and then if any others come in, of course, I will forward those to you, and we can you can interview those if you choose to. We have 6 applications to date, but we've had 1,270 people actually click on the posting and review it. So it's getting a lot of reviews, just not a lot of applications. So I expect we'll get more towards the end of the posting period, but it has been up for 23 days. We do have a tentative interview panel. If it's okay with the commissioners, it would be the 3 commissioners. I would set in as HR as usual, and then we'd have Jose Brion and Chief Hepner be one of the folks asking questions. So it'd be the 5 of you leading the interview, if that works. And I've got emails out to people in this state and Oregon trying to gather questions for. So I've contacting other counties in both states that have went through this process recently, so we can look at the questions they ask, assuming they're pretty much the same. And then we'll probably have some unique to us, and that's the next project, to gather those questions and get them out to the commissioners so we can come up with the interview questions. So I think we're on the way there. I did submit the ORI application to the state. It has been looked at by the FBI. I don't want to pick a term. They didn't find anything wrong with it. I'm not going to say they approved it, but the FBI reviewed the initial stuff and didn't have any thing yet. The state police has received our application and it's in their hands now. So that's a big milestone. Collective bargaining, there's going to be, well, at least from the county side, more to it than I thought as I started going through the contract, because we'll have to bargain the impact of the move as well as civil service. So both the sheriff's office and civil service is embedded all throughout the contract. So I'm going to request a formal bargaining session with the union so we can get started working on that and get that either worked on or hopefully complete before a transition. So that's the next big thing for Casey and I to work on. And, I was talking to Commissioner Anderson this morning, and one of the things actually, I think it was in the motion, was to develop a transition plan. And I think you've seen every Tuesday, the transition plan we discuss. We have close to 60 different items ranging from patches to approval by the state police and the FBI. So it runs the whole gamut. And I'm sure there's more out there. But I think we have the basis for a good transition plan. And when you select a jail administrator, I'm confident that we can hand this over. And will we have captured everything? Probably not. Will we have captured most things and the important things? I believe so. But so I think we're following the intent of the motion, which was to develop a plan and move forward, knowing as much as we can know. So I feel pretty good about that. So I think that's the jail update to this point. So again, we're going to be focused on the hiring process and the collective bargaining process. The actual transition plan is probably going to move forward a little bit, but not a lot of work on it until you select a jail administrator. Any questions?
No questions, but I know this has been a Herculean task.
I have no questions.
There's a million things that pop up that you have to, it's a new fire every day to figure out that you didn't know what you didn't know. And I just wanted to say thank you for you and all your staff for continuing to work on this project and get it down the road. Thank you for forwarding the first batch of applications. I'll be sure to go through those for my recommendations. And it's good to see that people are interested and there are applications.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. There's a lot of people in offices and departments in addition to the awesome people I get a chance to work with every day working on this. So many unnamed people, but they know who they are and I appreciate their efforts, but thank you.
And thank you for your awesome attention to detail.
Thank you, Commissioner. So that concludes the jail update. I think Commissioner Anderson wanted to talk about the coroner. Did you want to do that now? Or is that scheduled for this afternoon or?
Yeah, we can do it now.
Yeah. That was a come up here, Casey.
So again, the question from our perspective is the process to move forward. I believe that the budget proposal includes the full cost of making it a department as opposed to an office, because we can't put it on the ballot, which it could be an office in the future, but initially, and I could be wrong on all this, but I think initially a department. And we've kind of know some of the things we can do and some of the things we can't do. I believe we can't contract this out. I'm not the final say in that. So it appears it's either partnering with another county, and I know we've talked about Skamania, or appointing someone or doing a full recruitment to hire someone to be the coroner and set up a full department, which is the most expensive option, but maybe the best option. That's not for me to decide. But I think we included the full cost of a department in the proposed budget of a coroner. Okay. So if that's the route we go, we at least have a number in there that is probably pretty close.
It's the number that was presented to the board early in the year.
Gotcha.
We need to get her a mic.
No.
What's in the 2025 budget estimates, is the estimates that was proposed or presented to the board early in the year.
Is you had two estimates. One of them was for just our county, and one of them was an estimate if we partnered with Skamania. Which one are you using in the budget packet?
Just our county, I believe.
Thank you.
So I know Commissioner Zoller was going to talk to Skamania County and you've been busy. Have you had a chance to have a conversation with them?
I've not finished my conversation with them,
Okay.
but I can go back to that right away now with other things being cleared up, and we can come to resolve on that, where they're at with wanting to. They had a lot of good suggestions. They have a lot of past historical knowledge. I think it'd be worth the talk with them if it can save us money.
I would agree. It would be absolutely worth having the conversation, but for our budget, the budget as a placeholder, this first year's budget is going to be more expensive than next year's budget, I hope, because you've got the cost of creating something new out of thin air. So if we think it's going to cost $250 to operate it or $300 each year, I think we need to build in 20% contingency on the first year in the budget, just so we don't have to come back and do a budget supplemental as we're building that. I've seen what it costs to put tables and chairs in behavioral health, and it's mind-boggling how expensive some things can be.
I can do that. I did not add furniture or anything
Yep,
like that to this budget.
Figured it, we were thinking operational, not the setup costs. And we know, and we're looking at the same thing with patches and other things with the jail, that you've got those first year setup costs. So we just need to build that into the budget. Whether we go with contracting with Skamania on the operational side or working with Skamania, I think that can be worked out. I think as long as it's built into the budget, we know we can do it. And then the next thing is we need to finish these conversations in the next 2 or 3 weeks so that we can start hiring. Because I would like to, if we do hire somebody, I'd like to have them have some time with the current coroner and get that done, at the latest, mid-November, very latest.
That's a good point, Commissioner. I was going to say December, but mid-November works. One, we'll probably have to do the supplemental in October to cover the expense of whatever that person costs for however long they're on board, whether it be 6 weeks or a month or so if we know that, we can plan that into the October. I don't think we've designated an office space yet. We don't have IT equipment. We don't have a phone. I mean, so if we go that route, so I think we still have time to do the posting and get it out there for the 4 or 5 weeks. We usually post, probably take 8 weeks to go through the entire process if that's the route we go. But we have a lot of facilities issues to deal with and IT issues to deal with. So they have actually a place to set January 1st and they're up and running. So just more time we have for that, then the better, I think.
And the last update I can give, the third thing, meetings that I've been having it with Mike Hoover, who's the contract lobbyist for WASAC, was one of the priorities that we put forward for the rural counties was the corner positions and the cost of these rural counties. So we've had one meeting and Mike and I have been going back and forth on how we're going to try to ask the legislature for the funding to cover the small counties the first year. And he's been talking about, do we do this for 2 or 3 years so that we can absorb this and then design it into the budgets and how we go from there. So that is one of the things that, where that's going to lie, or those costs. So we are still trying to work on the revenue side and that's moving forward.
That's good. So I'll commit to bringing you back everything I can next week.
Great.
So we can get moving. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I think we have a plan.
Okay.
Any questions or anything else you want us to do?
Just make sure that we have a conversation with the current coroner and the budget and make sure that we're not missing something that they think we're going to need.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Is it too early to start talking to facilities about trying to identify a workable space, or do you want to wait until we find out what we're gonna?
I think we need to have those conversations. I know we had preliminary conversations a long time ago, but that was 6 months ago.
I know, I believe Jeff proposed a place in the courthouse, and then there's other options here that would be a little more problematic, but, okay, well, I'll loop Public Works and Facilities into the conversation, and so we can all be heading the same direction. Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Did we want to keep staff here for a second to talk about WSU?
Yes.
We
Might as
put
well
that
do it.
on the list, and I had received an email that I forwarded to Jen and to Rob for help with WSU contracts, because there was some confusion in my mind about creating the contract to cover what we've done this year and getting it on file and then moving into 2025 with the new contract. Do you want me to look for that and resend it?
I can go check my email.
Okay,
I mean, I saw it and scanned it,
It's
but
been busy.
I wasn't
I know. Yeah.
looking into it that.
Yeah. I just wasn't, I had some questions that I couldn't answer in that email.
And did
Okay,
we
I'll
include-
go look.
Did we include anything in the proposed budget? For
The board had told me to put a placeholder like last year of the 100,000, so that's what I
Okay.
did.
And I think that's what they structured it around at WSU because they knew that's what we had done. But it's just a matter of completing those contracts
Okay.
now. Okay.
Perfect. Well, primarily having a number in the budget
Yeah.
allows us to move forward, but
Yeah.
yes, we'll go back and review
Sweet as
that.
moving forward.
Are the other commissioners going to get to see that contract before it gets presented on the agenda? So we can have discussions if we would like to?
I think it's a matter yet of creating that contract, and that's why I sent it forward for help with that. So I'm sure it'll be shared as soon as they get something.
I'm assuming
done.
it'll have to go through.
I'd like to see the draft before. we-
Right,
Yeah.
and then ultimately approve the form and submit
I
it.
think before we approved a form, it'd be good to have the draft in front of the board as a whole.
Okay.
So that we
Okay.
can have
We'll work on
discussions
that,
on.
Jenna.
Okay.
I'll-
Yeah.
And
Okay.
let me know if I can help,
Okay.
what you need from me.
I apologize for not catching that
No,
earlier.
it's okay.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
realize
been
that
a
you
crazy
had
time.
questions for me on that, so I'm sorry for
Yeah,
that.
it's been busy. Yeah, no
Can I
problem.
blame Jeff King for that?
Yeah, he's out of the room.
Oh, yeah.
But
No.
now,
Okay, we'll work on that.
okay, that was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So anything else?
What did I see?
I have nothing, Mr. Christopher. Anything else for you this morning?
Nothing for me.
Okay. We've been very efficient. We did good.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to recess for the lunch hour, noting we will be back at 1 p.m.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. See you all back at 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on August 20th, and welcome back to the Klickitat County Commissioners' regular meeting. And all three commissioners are present. Oops. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to see about making an addition to the business agenda. I forgot to add something.
Okay.
And if the board is willing, I would like to have a discussion on first aid and CPR training for employees.
Sounds good. You okay, Jake? Under unfinished business,
Wherever you want it.
looks like,
Miscellaneous.
okay, we can put it under miscellaneous.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So we're going to start with public meeting for the approval of a short plat.
So this is for a short plat alteration. The number is SPL 2024-09 for Michelle Ruber as the trustee. The short plat alteration is a proposal to remove the recorded building footprint from SPL 2001-35 that is on parcel 03102358000301 and 03102358000302. The proposed short plat is located within a portion of section 23, township 3, range 10, east of the Willamette Meridian, Klickitat County, Washington, in White Salmon vicinity. The administrative review of the plat alteration has been completed. Signatures have been obtained from the road, health, and planning departments and the treasurer's office. All conditions attached to preliminary approval have been met. If the board finds it is in the public's interest to approve this short plat, a motion needs to be made granting approval of SPL 2024-09.
Do we have any questions?
I have one. What is the purpose of removing a building footprint? Were they planning on building something and then just never did? How does that work?
So, a little background on this parcel, the short plat was done in 2001. There is a slope on it, which makes it a critical area. At the time of the original short plat, they deemed at the time that it was best to have the footprints put on the building site for them to build within those footprints. Now they would like to build outside of the footprint, and it has gone through the process from the different departments for making sure that it's not posing a risk. So they don't have to build within the established footprint anymore. They will still need to meet any conditions that would apply for like a critical area for a slope or for height restrictions or anything like that. It just doesn't have to be exactly where that footprint is.
But why did we put a footprint in it originally? That I just seems
In
weird if we
2000
gave them a permit to build it within a footprint and now we're saying you don't have to build it within that footprint. Not that I'm opposed, but I'm curious why there was a footprint in the first place then.
Yeah, there was critical, there was concerns about with the septic and the water and on the slope and things, and things have progressed in the area, that area of White Salmon, to where development has occurred more for and not being a concern with environmental health anymore. I do not have the full 2001 file with me, but at the time they deemed that that was a logical middle ground for them.
Okay, so just for my knowledge, when they decide to build on this property, on whatever piece of property or whatever area of the parcel they want to build on, they will still have to go through all the procedures, and public health will have to sign off and go through. Will they have to go through critical areas again or no?
Yeah, we will look at that, and everything will be checked the same. It's just, it doesn't have to be in that exact spot.
I think part of the difference might have been too is the first site was chosen by the parents. And now this site is a child that wants to build there and wants to build in a different place.
Yeah, so the parents did do the original short plat, and the daughter does not want to build her house in that exact spot.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
You're welcome. But yes, they do have to, any permitting on there will still need to go through all the same conditions and make sure it still meets any zoning or restrictions for that area.
I don't have any issues.
I have no issues.
Madam Chair, we have before us short plat SPL 2024-09. I would make a motion to approve.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
And I'd like to say that Dan's not here to complain about his pen running out of the ink.
Well, somebody hand Alyssa my pen and she can sign for me and then she can complain.
You.
Thank you. And Scott, I think you are up next. Scott Edelman from our planning department with an update, department update.
Good afternoon and welcome back from Alaska.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great trip. So there's two items. We need to cover the battery energy storage system moratorium and then scheduling a rezone hearing. Did you want me to start with a brief department update?
Sure.
We can go into those. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to speak on the critical areas ordinance. As was mentioned, the planning commission did get through it. Get through it doesn't necessarily have the definition that you might hope. It means that they were able to work through the final chapters with their comments. They're not done with it yet because of how long it took and the changes they've made. We're going to go back and through the hearings process. You may be aware that the last public hearing on it was almost exactly 2 years ago. And so now we're back to the point of having another public hearing. We had a SEPA on the original document, which has been changed. It's still much more significant than the current draft, but they have backed off on some of the requirements that were in the draft from the consultant. So we will, and the SEPA was appealed. Our plan right now, and this was at recommendation of the Department of Commerce and also some of our internal thoughts, to go ahead and pull back our original SEPA approval, refund the appeal, and do a new SEPA as well. We also have a required 60-day review period for state agencies. So next month, we're going to do a full review of the document. They're going to kind of last changes. I'm making all the changes they made to the whole document through track changes. They're going to review it, make sure there's not some final things. It's also going to give an informal 30 days for state agencies to either participate in the meeting or give comments ahead of time. Once that meeting takes place, we'll have our draft, pretty much hearings ready draft, and then we'll send it out for the official 60-day review by state agencies. After which we can hold our public hearing again.
Yeah.
And we'll do the SEPA. So that's where we're at with critical areas. We're getting close. Interesting conversation with Department of Commerce. We're so far behind on it that our 7-year review period is coming up next year. And so we actually have $150,000 earmarked for us to do work on the critical areas ordinance start for the next 2 years, starting next July. The good news is, because of the fact that we're getting that done, she said that we'll be able to use it for other purposes. She also said often they wouldn't grant the funds, but when you have new change of staff, they often give you a little bit of benefit of the doubt, kind of a fresh start is what she said. So we will have some money coming in to support additional work, which is a good thing right now, I think. Interviews, we have, as you all know, Denise is retiring at the end of September. And we have interviews tomorrow. We have 4 candidates, one from Arizona, one from Wisconsin, at both obviously remote interviews. And then we've got one from Spokane County and then another from here in Goldendale. So we've got 2 in person, 2 online that we'll be interviewing tomorrow. 3 of the 4 are very entry level. They're right out of school or from an unrelated field. Another one is probably a senior level type planner. So we're interviewing for associate, assistant, or senior planner. We advertise each looking for the best fit, and doesn't necessarily mean because we have someone senior level, they're automatically going to get it. It's going to be who fits best with the department, short and long term. So that's where we're at on that. We're excited to get into those tomorrow.
The remote, are they willing to relocate?
They say they are.
Okay.
We had one who would have went a 5th, but he wasn't willing to relocate. Okay. He was looking for consultant services, but they say they are. One is trying to get, said that he likes the resource area mixed with the interesting urban centers. And so I was interested, what does that mean? Do you mean the Dalles Hood River? And he meant Portland. So I don't know if the geography is quite there. So we'll see if it's a fit for that person as well, if they're our top
At least you have the experience where you can tell them that we're a very gracious board and help people relocate, because you have your experiences with that. So
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, and that is, I think that will be helpful if we choose one of those candidates and they take the job. I want to mention things are settling a little bit. We're still got a lot of catch up to do. Some projects sitting out there that we're really trying, embarrassingly late on, that we're trying to get moving on. But I think overall we're feeling a little more caught up. So we're trying to take advantage of some training opportunities through the Department of Commerce and others. We've got a training that all three of the planners, and myself included, are doing on defensible staff reviews this Friday. And then we've got a training coming up that I'll be bringing a request to you to send Rebecca to,
Okay.
which looks like a really, really good one that has to do a lot to with effective public engagement and that type of thing that I would like to see more of us get involved in. And also you'll see in our budget, it's not budget to look at right now, but we had a miscellaneous category with $3,000 that we only use about 150 of for membership dues. I'm proposing we transfer that to training so we can have more opportunities next year, because there's a lot of interest in our department in that. And I think depending who we hire, I think that there could be a lot of interest in the new person as well. I think that's all that I wanted to cover today. You mentioned the planning commission getting very busy. They will be very busy, so it'll be good to get through curricular areas ordinance. We're going to be starting discussion about comp plan work, solar ordinance, the battery energy storage, next steps if you pass the moratorium, the next steps that we need to take on that with the commission. And that's not even mentioning the shoreline management plan, which is still hanging out there. So we got a lot to work on the next couple of years.
Good work, though.
Yeah, they are. They're really, it's a good committed group.
Yeah.
Appreciate them.
They've been working hard at it and committed to it, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, we have had, I won't say the name right now because I need to confirm, but we have had one planning commissioner through email request to be replaced. So we'll be looking to probably come to you for a replacement. And I'll come with some more information in my next update on that.
Okay.
Ready to jump in the other two items if you are.
No.
Which one would you like to do first?
Up to you.
I've got it in front of me. The battery energy storage systems.
Okay.
So that as you know, if it's been to you, you reviewed it, went to the PA's office, and I don't speak for them at all, but the one thing I think that I'm authorized to say is they didn't want to make a comment on the original one because they didn't feel that it was defensible, is the words that he used. I believe you had some conversations and as a result, I have two, one that was in your packet, which is the full moratorium that was discussed, including storage of lithium batteries, and then an alternate version, which is only dealing with the battery energy storage systems that have to do with energy projects.
Okay. Do you have questions or comments or?
A few. I wasn't seeing it in our actual packet. I saw it here this morning and I read it. What was it in our packet and what page was it in?
It's just the cover sheet.
Yeah, but the actual change was not in the packet.
Oh,
so
my oversight. I apologize for that.
yeah, so that was one of the concerns that I had because I was like,
yeah, no, that is a concern. I'm to do that.
Have you seen it, Commissioner Christopher?
No.
It's the same one that went to the PA. I didn't make any changes to it, but no, it should have been in your packet this time.
It wasn't in the packet. I believe Scott emailed it over, but that was this morning and I haven't had time to go through that.
I emailed the one that doesn't have the storage of lithium battery.
Okay.
I did not email the other one.
But just for clarification, the one that removed the storage of lithium battery and just focuses on the BESS also has not gotten legal review.
Correct.
That would be true. They didn't look at any of it. So no.
Right. I've had some conversations. So the best would be basically the same as Yakima's moratorium, correct?
That's what it was based on originally.
So it was based off of that one. And so it's the simple version from the first version that we submitted the first time is what that one is. And then the second one added the lithium with some language. Moving forward, one of the reasons I brought the battery moratorium discussion back to the table, it seemed like it was, with all the fires and things happening, it was pertinent that we get that moving. So I brought it back around. using the first version for me, based off of Yakima's moratorium, and that has not been challenged. It's held, was the simplest way for me to accomplish this for items that might be on the table right away, pressure we might be under. Adding the other items, it's still my feeling that's more complicated. There's more numbers in there that can't be verified. There's a lot of things in there that we might need to really spend a lot of time on. So doing that one, for me right now, when we have battery issues in front of us, I think it's simpler to stick with the simple version and then go back in. And I know, Mr. Christopher, you had concerns that we might kick it down the road, but I'm afraid that that one will hang us up and we won't be able to protect ourselves from the things that are on our horizon.
Well, I would say I've been trying to do this for 3.5 years, so I have justification for kicking it down the road and saying that it will be kicked down the road and not done. With that, I understand the best systems are integrated with fire management systems. So to me, while they are worrisome, they are not as worrisome as somebody's warehouse full of lithium-ion batteries with no fire. I think we can't justify that we throw the one out that has lithium battery storage for warehouses because it didn't get legal review, because your other one didn't get legal review either. And I'm not ready to hope and pray that the board retakes up the warehouse battery storage at some point in the future, just based off my past experience. So how you the two of you choose to move ahead on this is up to you. And if your argument is that the warehouse one is not defensible, even though you don't even know if the other one is defensible, I would say you can always pass two, and cover your basis and move forward. And that would be an easy answer that should be amenable.
Commissioner Zoller, may I ask, my conversation with the PA, that they had read it, I believe, but they chose not to give a comment. It seemed like your conversation maybe was, I don't know, did they give you indication of a review? Because that was after.
I would say it was passing conversation.
Okay.
I don't want to call it
Okay.
a review.
Good.
I have a question though. The second version, is the best storage covered the same as it is in the first version? We just have an addition of the lithium. Is that what expands that one?
They're identical, except for all I did was pull out all reference to the lithium batteries from the one that you've seen before.
Okay.
Right. And my argument, I guess I would say, is if you have both storage systems in the same moratorium, it is possible that one of either the best storage or the lithium warehouse storage can be found not legal eventually. Who knows? But it doesn't mean that neither one of them are found illegal. And just removing one of them or adding one of them in doesn't throw out the whole document. So I would argue that they should both be in, whether you do them in the same document or separate documents. And have a moratorium for one and a moratorium for the other if you think that the document is that important. But I'm not willing to give up on the people and not cover the warehouse full of battery storage that I think is a far more likely cost concern and public health and safety concern to the general public.
Can I ask a question? Where is our logical justification, and what did we rely upon for creating a prohibition against the storage or warehousing of over 50 used or new 12-volt, 24 or 48-volt batteries?
Pick numbers out of a hat.
So we have,
There's
there's nothing that we can.
The only thing I did was I contacted Les Schwab, find out how many batteries do you have on hand. I mean, it's in a city. It's part of the reason it's tricky for me is these are two very different issues. One is something that they come in and apply for. We review it. We have full control over whether we're approving or not. Nobody's going to come in with a proposal to have a storage facility for batteries. They're going to have a warehouse, and there'd be enforcement. So one is planning approval and review. The other is enforcement. They're both are important, but very different how we treat them. So Les Schwab, I think, I can't remember how many, I think I said they have 30 or so on hand, and I think that 50 came to cover something like that. I think it was meant to be something, try to be logical of what would, if you have a mechanic or somebody, a farmer, someone has a bunch of batteries and around, if 50, there's no, I would say there's no real basis other than logic. The 300 cell phones, wherever it is, was just a number. I don't have a way to say, I think initially I put fewer, but I don't have a
My
basis for
question
it.
is if we're establishing a moratorium to stop something from happening, can we say that 50 batteries constitutes either a hazardous waste problem or an issue where they're individual batteries that are 12-volt batteries, like your car battery, that creates something that we need a moratorium against?
I don't have any basis for it.
Okay.
My whole focus has been the BESS systems. That's my primary concern, what I was looking at. I know with the moratorium, it does give you the opportunity to set the moratorium and within 2 months have the hearing where you bring forth that type of information. I think that's the whole purpose of the process, that you can do your moratorium because there's considered to be some sort of emergency. And it gives you time to then have a public hearing and establish a work plan.
That's what I'm trying to understand is what is the emergency that having 50 new or used 12-volt batteries is?
I
How would
can't
that
answer
become
that side of it. I can answer my opinion on the battery energy storage systems, what the emergency is, but not the other one.
Okay.
Perhaps Commissioner Christopher could answer that. I only say that because I don't mean to put him on the spot. It came in because he's the one who proposed that we add it to the
Okay.
moratorium.
Well, because it's not hard to see nationwide that you have companies going into the business of collecting lithium ion batteries, not treating them correctly, and you have fires. That is a public health and safety issue. I understand it's a code compliance issue more than a planning issue, but it doesn't mean it should not be addressed. And while I believe my seatmates may not see the importance of such a thing, I would say my predecessors didn't see the importance of regulating how many tires you can store either. And so I guess when it falls out of the sky, we can do nothing. And then when it falls out of the sky 5 years from now, I certainly hope the citizens go back and look at this video and whatever ruling comes out of this so they know exactly who to blame.
And let me clarify this. It just says the warehousing or storage of 50 newer used 12-volt batteries. So this has gone beyond lithium because that would include lead acid batteries, that would include LiFePO batteries, that would include everything, correct?
Well, I believe it was supposed to say lithium. So if it doesn't say lithium, that is an error that I didn't get in there. If I remember correctly, Commissioner Christopher, you specifically said to put lithium in the language.
Correct. I am not interested in storing too many lead acid batteries, although that is its own public health and safety concern. If batteries crack and you're releasing lead acid, that is a contained issue that would contaminate soil, not so much as cause the evacuation of a town. I'm worried about lithium ion, and we're setting basic standards that essentially in this moratorium, nobody should be harmed by the numbers listed on this moratorium because we shot high. And then it's up to the planning commission to do their research and bring back a recommendation based off the research that you're asking us to do to even make the moratorium. If we gather all the evidence and gather all the findings and come up with the accurate number, then why even send it to the planning commission? Because they have nothing to do. That's their job, is to do the research and come up with the findings and make a recommendation to us.
But the moratorium doesn't go in front of the planning commission, that goes in front of us. And the hearing on that goes in front of us, not the planning commission.
Then that is correct. The hearing would go to you, and in the hearing, the result of it could be establishing a work plan, which could include taking something to the planning commission.
Could, yes.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to review the new FSEC application on GoldenEye?
No.
So, and I don't know if either of my seatmates are aware, but there's an FSEP application for a battery storage, BESS, program called GoldenEye in Skagit County, just outside the city limits of Cedro Woolley. And I would say my first question is, would passing this moratorium stop FSEC from permitting a BESS system anywhere in Klickitat County?
I don't think it would. It
It-
may create something they'd have to address. And if we were to follow up with temporary or permanent standards, then they would have to address those, is my understanding. But addressing them, they can ignore them.
Because the way I read what either one of these, it is only on the acceptance and processing of any application going through the county process.
Right.
So it actually doesn't prohibit BESS systems anywhere in Klickitat County. It only just stops us from processing the application.
Right. We wouldn't be. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Until we have regulations in place or
Mhm.
ordinances in place.
Well,
similar to
I will
solar.
interrupt just a quickie. That was kind of the problem with the initial moratorium because it was on the acceptance of permits. It needs to not be on the acceptance of permits, but on the placement of projects.
Okay.
That
And that came
way-
directly from the model that I used. That was the exact language I
Right.
used. So
But
if we-
I would,
that's a good point.
I can see justifying changing that language.
Okay.
But I also agree with the citizen that spoke earlier, is this moratorium needs to go hand in hand with an interim zoning ordinance, just as a double backup. But again, I'm fine if you want to make two moratoriums based on the different, one for the best system and one for large scale battery storage, and send them both forward that way, and make interim zoning ordinance as well. But yeah, however you guys choose to move forward, at least it's moving forward.
Did Skagit County have a moratorium at all? Or they're
I
just wide open? I don't think they do.
was looking at the GoldenEye applications because again, even for a BESS, you have to go through the land use consistency hearing. When you go through the land use consistency hearing, there's nothing in this moratorium that I see that would have anything that could challenge the land use consistency hearing on this. And so again, this comes back to my question of, are we doing something to make people feel good, or are we actually doing something? And if you can still go through FSEC, then your moratorium has no strength, no value, no validity in essence, because nobody's going to go through our local process anyways.
I would caution the board to be making legal interpretation when I don't believe any of the three of us are lawyers. And you haven't got a legal interpretation at the best of my knowledge. And if you have, please share it with the group. So we are, yes, in effect, running blind. And so we can throw up our hands and say, oh, the state's going to do it anyway. Let's do that, because that makes a good scapegoat. And if that's what the board chooses to do, feel free. I don't think that's what the people expect you to do. So
in my opinion, it does create an obstacle. I agree if they could choose to go to FSEC, but the companies that are contacting me, and that's why there's an emergency in my mind. 2004, when the energy overlay zone was passed, there was no contemplation whatsoever of battery energy storage systems. At least there might have been on the private sector, but not in most jurisdictions. And now they're imminent. They're coming. It's not speculative. There are very serious projects that are coming with very large scale, some standalone battery storage interested in here in Klickitat County. And that's not necessarily bad as long as we locate them right and have the right siting standards. They are approaching me with the intention of, well, they want to do it under the energy overlay zone, which to this point I've told them that's not covered because it wasn't included in any kind of SEPA that was reviewed for the energy overlay zone. It's not listed as a use in it. So I've told them that it would have to be a conditional use permit. But that's the process they're interested in, at least to start with. They're not talking about FSEC, they're talking to us, applying directly with us. So that seems to be their preferred. So to me, it is a barrier. Whether it's an effective barrier or not, I don't know. I mean, there's a reason apparently they would rather go through the county than FSEC if we had standards that would allow them to.
And for me, not calling it a barrier, but calling it we're being responsible and moving forward at this time that we need to. Where we found a gap.
And I've been a barrier until we are
Yeah.
able to have standards in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because I think that's our goal with all this, with our solar ordinance too, that's funded through the grant, is to incentivize companies to go through the county instead of FSEC.
Yeah.
Follow our standards, locate
Be a good
per
neighbor.
the standards that we think would be appropriate.
And that's exactly what I agree with the removal of the word barrier. I think the planning commission could come back with areas that don't have population density problems. And that where they feel could be a good fit, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. But in the same regard, the planning commission's probably going to come back and say you probably shouldn't store all these in downtown White Salmon. And yet the Board of County Commissioners is at least considering removing the warehouse battery storage that could actually be located in downtown White Salmon. So it kind of proves my point. We're talking about where these would be best located to put this many potentially hazardous batteries. But yet we're kind of removing the option from the table of somebody that just wants to fill a warehouse full of recycled Tesla batteries. And that's a shame.
Do you have more questions or comments, Mr. Anderson?
No, I still have the same concern that we're passing a moratorium that is only stopping people from going through our process, which it was just stated was the goal, is to have people go through our process, because then at least we have a little bit of control. Instead, what we're doing is the same thing that we did before, and that's pushing people to have to go through the state process, which then takes away our ability to have any local control.
If we change the language from applying to the more language of prohibiting projects, would that have any more teeth in your mind at FSEC?
So
That needs to be changed regardless.
I agree.
the one thing I would say is I've been saying since the last 3 years now is that you have to have interim zoning controls, because the land use consistency hearing has already been ruled multiple times, including on one within Klickitat County, that unless you change the actual underlying zoning controls, then it is still consistent. And even after it's consistent, you still have the possibility that you can make it go through the adjudication process if you can show that an EIS is required, which is what I've always stated is that these things need to go through a full EIS.
Right, but again, you're giving legal advice that
I'm
it
not
is
giving advice. I'm saying,
approved from
stating my
FSEC, so it
opinion.
must be, it's approved from FSEC, so it must be legal. It has not been challenged in court on whether what FSEC is doing is actually legal. They just know that they're not running into any roadblocks by rubber stamping, so they're rubber stamping away. That doesn't mean that I should not put protections in for my people in hopes that eventually someday there might be legal justification to bring it before a judge. Well, time will tell. I understand what FSEC is going to permit whatever they want to permit because they believe we're not going to do anything about it. But the future board may choose to do something about it. And I'm going to continue to do my job for as long as I'm sitting here to try to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people.
So I think we've.
I had a quick question from Commissioner Anderson. You mentioned that you think your opinion is that an EIS should be required for these type of projects. That's my thought too, has that not been the practice to your knowledge? I mean, we haven't had a BS system, but.
So the idea at FSEC is that if you can show that it has a land use consistency determination, and you can show that it then can fall as a part of the what's the term for it? In essence, speedy permitting process, then it doesn't have to have a full EIS. And this is, the process that it goes through. It doesn't need scoping. It doesn't need a full EIS. I mean, we've been working on one EIS in Klickitat County for one project for 6-7 years now. I mean, that's the breadth of an EIS, for certain EISs. Granted, that's a dam with water storage, but the idea that I've always stated is that you don't want to just take people's private property rights away. You want to give them the ability for both sides to have a robust conversation and dialogue. And the best place to do that is at the local level. When you pass a moratorium, all you're really doing is pushing that conversation to a state level where your voice gets drowned out. And so my statement on the previous moratoriums is that we're cutting off our nose in order to try to save ourselves, not knowing that what we're doing is shooting ourselves in the foot. And that's always been my concern, and that's what I've always pointed out based on what the rulings of FSEC have been. Now, I can't vote for this as it stands because I feel that that's a disservice to the stated intent of the whereas clauses in there, knowing that that's a case. If you're stating that there is an emergency from your perspective and that we should not have any of these in here, then the moratorium needs to be not just the moratorium. What we should be passing is actually interim zoning controls, which you can do on an emergency basis. And that would be how you would pass that. And those emergency zoning controls would not allow the siting of any of these, and that would actually be a land use change. That is something that you could hold up in front of FSEC and say, no, it is not consistent with the land use. If you want to go forward with this, has to be through the adjudication process, which means it's in front of the judges. And that's the direction you'd have to go. How that turns out, well, we're about to see that in Benton County or not. But at least it creates more hurdles and it adds to the cost of, the project in essence, or the uncertainty for the developers, while the planning commission can adopt reasonable regulations for these projects, which I've always stated is where this should have been in the first place. We've spent 2.5 months working on a moratorium when we could have just directed the planning commission at any given time to take this up immediately and come up with siting standards, which then anytime we make decisions, creating a moratorium in my mind is the things that most people are afraid of, because you're in essence taking away their private property rights without due process.
When you say the planning commission could have been coming up with siting standards, is that the interim zoning controls you're speaking of, or do you think?
No, that is, you direct the planning commission to take this up and come up with, because in essence, what we're doing is we're saying there is an immediate emergency. We need a 6-month moratorium from accepting applications. We're going to institute interim zoning controls, and then we're going to direct the planning commission to come up with the siting standards.
Okay.
Well, if we just would have started with directing the planning commission to come up with siting standards rather than making a moratorium, we would already be almost to the point of making decisions in the land use code update and going through the SEPA process to do that.
But we wouldn't be doing the critical areas ordinance. There's a finite amount of time is the only thing
That
for to
we're
deal with some of these things. So that was but that's why I wonder if interim zoning controls, would you want me to come back with those?
Well, it's up to the board. I've
That is an
always
option.
been, and it's a board of a whole. I'm just saying that from the very beginning, I've always said that moratoriums are the very last thing you should ever do. It is for when there is a change, either physically in the environment, like your wells go dry. And so you implement a moratorium that stops you from adding any more connections to a system. Or if the state legislature changes the law and allows for something that currently has never been anticipated or thought of, that's what a moratorium is for. If there is something that we have seen coming, that we've had conversations for 3 years, but if the board has not done anything about it, or you've known about it, to me, that does not constitute an emergency at that point, because we have had 3 years to direct staff, to prioritize staff, or the planning commission to work on something. And so for me, that's the moral conundrum that I have personally is that everything that I start with is you have your base private property rights, and when somebody's taking those away from you, that's in essence a taking. And in order to do that, there has to be a change either from the legislative side or from the physical environment side that necessitates that. Just because we don't like something or we don't want something right now doesn't necessarily make it an emergency. Kind of like writing in there that, 50 batteries constitutes an emergency without having findings of fact behind it that can verify that, or 500 small lithium batteries. I don't even know how that could be the size of my laptop, could have 500, in essence, mini lithium batteries in it. And so without doing the due diligence and research in it, I would be very concerned that it's indefensible. So
if we were to put out, because my concern is time. This is time the planning commission has, time the staff has to do full, I think it'd be a part of the work plan to do permanent changes. But if we were to do interim zoning controls, what would you envision those to look like? Would that simply be within each zone saying BESS are not allowed?
there's
allowed use?
a perfectly good example in the interim zoning controls that we instituted the last time around that shows how the process of doing that. And I believe it's already included in our zones for the solar moratorium. And that's the only way that you can do it, that you can get through the process of the land use consistency determination.
I was trying to understand
It
because
still won't stop. I mean, that's the problem.
right, you're talking about depriving people of the rights to a moratorium. It seemed like it'd be the same deprivation of rights by putting it in the code that you can't do it. It seems like it have the same effect as a moratorium, but to just be in the code. That's fine. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the direction you're going.
Absolutely, it is a deprivation of your rights when you make something like that and you implement it without allowing the public the ability to comment. Whether the public agrees or not, or a certain section agrees with not, absolutely, that is my moral conundrum.
So I want to back up just a little bit and clarify for the public too. Batteries are not covered in the energy overlay zone. So if someone applies, what happens?
Well, that's my opinion looking at it. The energy overlay zone has two uses allowed, which are solar farms and wind farms. And then it says something, I don't have language in front of me, but accessory uses. And it doesn't say such as, it says instead accessory uses including, and it defines those. They're basically support buildings is what's described. It doesn't have anything similar to battery storage. So in my opinion, they could only get there through a conditional use permit along with it. They'd apply for, if it was a solar farm with battery storage, they'd apply for the solar farm. They do a conditional use permit for the battery storage. If it's just battery storage, they just do a conditional use permit.
And I will speak on this part of it. As the Board of Adjustments and the people that are going to issue the conditional use permit are made up of two residents of District 3, of which I have not had the ability to appoint either one of them. I have no faith and confidence that they will support the majority decision of the District 3. So I'm not waiting around to see what the Board of Adjustments does. I feel they'll be just like FSEC. So I will do my due diligence and continue to push for a moratorium and interim zoning controls. If one of them doesn't hold up in court, so be it, but at least I wasn't derelict in my duty.
Well, that was a very kind thing to say about two volunteer board members of the Board of Adjustments. But I think what we were talking about right there was leading to the question of the staff has the interpretation that you would have to go through a conditional use permit in order to permit a battery storage facility system anywhere in Klickitat County, including within the energy overlay zone currently, correct?
Yes.
Do you feel that a conditional use permit would give the county staff, agencies, the ability to appropriately set standard setbacks for the issuance of a BES system with the way that the Washington State conditional use permit law is set?
I think it would be difficult without having more information because there's so little that I know about. I can't say we, because you may know a lot more about these than I do. Best practices in siting, for example. I mean, as a conditional use permit, we could require things, but if we don't have something to base it on, it could be challenged potentially easily by an applicant. If we say you have to have a 100-foot buffer zone for a fire break of gravel.
And I would like to remind everybody that if we allow it as a potential conditional use through the Board of Adjustments, FSEC does not have to use our Board of Adjustments. They can make their own. And if it's a potential conditional use, they'll just rule that it's okay, and it will never get to your Board of Adjustments. So putting up no controls, and I guess I'm just going to come straight to the point. this battery storage is turning out to be exactly like the solar moratorium. And I'm sorry to say it, Commissioner Zoller, if you're interested, you're going to have to negotiate with me, and we're going to have to come to a resolution, and we're going to have to push it through. Because I don't think you're going to get support off of Commissioner Anderson. Could be wrong, but he's not offering things up that he would sign off on. So either we need to move it forward, or we can just talk about it for the next 6 months.
Well, yeah, and I think that's where I was in this conversation. I think I know where we all stand, and I understand each other's positions and rationale. I just wanted to clarify for the public where that would go if we left as is. Because for me, the conditional use system, I'll say it, in the last few years has failed miserably. And I don't have faith in the conditional use system as it's functioned in the
I agree.
recent past. So Mr. Christopher, if we think we've had enough conversation, do you have would you like to make a motion?
I will ask the chair a question before I make a motion. Is the chair okay with staff making a moratorium for both your biggest battery concern and my biggest battery concern, and interim zoning ordinances separately for your biggest battery concern and my biggest battery concern, as separate items in case one of them has some kind of legal review down the road?
I think it might be wise because I think the lithium is going to take a lot bigger look, a lot more work, a lot more numbers than just the best systems.
I agree, and it may be able to, the first one that planning works on is the best system, gets it through, and then has time to work on the other one as they have time to work on the other one, which is why I wanted to do them separately.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. You ready for a motion, or do you want more comments?
I'm ready for a motion. We can have discussion during the motion, I guess.
Yep. Madam Chair, I would move that we direct staff to pass or provide 2 moratoriums. One for large-scale lithium battery production or storage, and the other one for the best systems. Also to come up with interim zoning controls for both, and present them to the board for review as soon as possible.
Is there something you need?
Not going to second it, but
Okay, I will step down and second. Motion and a second, any discussion?
Was that a motion to direct staff, or was that the motion actually adopting it?
The motion is to adopt, and I guess we can adopt the moratorium and the interim zoning regulations on those 2. And then make sure his wording when we sign the documents is correct. That it says lithium batteries and not just battery storage and things like that. We'll need to double check the language before we sign.
So I guess this is just in discussion. I would say that if you're going to be adopting a moratorium, you should have the written moratorium in front of you before you make a motion to adopt something that hasn't even been written and you haven't reviewed yet.
I think we did that with the solar. We came back with the document after the fact, but we went ahead and made the decision to move forward.
I will say that in solar, I had it far more detailed. And so I guess I can see where Jake is going. And I don't think if we wait 1 week to see the documents in front of us and make the motion to adopt would hurt us any, because I don't think anybody's going to come through with a permit request in the next week. So I am fine doing a friendly amendment if it's so allowed, to direct staff to bring us back wordage in language for both moratoriums and both interim zoning controls for potential adoption and approval next week.
I would debate that I think we need to listen to staff and take good advice and do the approval of the moratoriums and ask staff to come back next week with them for our signature after our approval.
What?
But
May I?
yes.
I don't think there's a too much danger in waiting a week. I did smile because yesterday afternoon about 4:45, I did have somebody ask me if they were able to throw an application together and get it to us with a fee by this morning. Could they? And I said, well, we'd have to have a complete application. You'd have to at least check off all the boxes to do it. So I don't think in a week they would be able to pull it together. I think if it all was just an application with a fee, we'd probably have one already.
Okay. All right. Then I can agree with your language, Mr. Christopher.
I feel more comfortable having the language.
That actually scares me that can they throw together a complete application that's done very haphazardly that then you make them go back through and correct all the errors in their application, but the application turn-in date was a week ago, so they're good?
I'm not, I suppose I could. They could hand draw something on a napkin and call it a site plan. I mean, I suppose.
And then you just say you need more details, so then they're going to provide you with more details. Interesting theory. With that, since my friendly amendment did not get seconded, I'm going to assume the friendly amendment died on the table, which leaves the original amendment to approve and adopt the moratoriums and the interim zoning ordinances as of today, being my motion.
First motion was to direct staff to provide.
Talk a little louder so he can hear.
His original was to direct staff. So he needs to.
Can't hear anything.
She's trying to reaffirm what your original motion was.
Okay.
Hang on just a sec.
Commissioner Christopher, your original was to direct staff. So you, I don't know if you want to just start over again.
Right. I will start over and clarify. My motion is to adopt a moratorium on BESS battery systems, as well as a moratorium on large-scale lithium-ion battery storage, using the numbers that have been provided by staff in the past, along with developing and adopting interim zoning ordinances for both as of today. And then we'll just let staff write that up with the wording that I believe he's understands our wording and prepare signatures for next week, but it will be for the adoption starting today.
And I think the two documents you had were very close.
Other than the tweak of like, if he just had battery in there and not lithium, he's going to need to add the lithium.
Right.
Because that's the only thing I'm concerned about.
So if I understand, the change that I would make would be to prohibit the siting location of these projects, the best, not just application of them on the one. On the other document, I need to take out all reference to battery energy storage systems, only leave in the lithium battery language. Keep the same numbers. Okay.
Okay.
Because that's what makes it comfortable, is it's an entirely different document at that point.
Right.
And then you said, as of today, it sounds like the motion is to adopt the interim zoning standards. So I need to know what those are. Is that simply prohibition in all zones of battery energy storage systems as the interim measure?
Yes, as of right now, it's prohibition throughout the county.
Energy
and direction to the planning commission to look at this and make recommendations to the board on where it may be safe. Because I mean, technically you could put these things in the middle of nowhere land and run Gentile lines out to the power transformer. It's just going to cost whatever company $1.2 million a mile to run Gentile lines. And I understand they don't want to do that. There are going to be safe places in the county to permit some of this stuff. We just have to pick where that is. So my hope is that the planning commission will have time to look through that and make those decisions.
moratorium until the emergency zoning controls are in place? Is language that I heard.
Essentially
Okay.
today. We just signed the language next week.
And the moratorium can be for 6 months. We have to have a public hearing within 2 months with the board. That can be extended another 6 months, is my understanding, if there's a work plan established.
Okay.
I would hope that we could get something resolved sooner with the grant funding for the solar project. I'm including, at least in the proposal, it's still going through the state, we're going back and forth on the scope of work still. But it would include upfront some best practice work from a consultant on battery energy storage systems, with a thought that within the first 3 months of within the next 3 to 4 months, we might have some actual information to base some real language in the code on.
That sounds good. So we have, are we done with discussion? No more discussion? All those in favor?
Did you second the motion
I did.
after you did all that?
I can re-second after we did corrections. And then any further discussion?
I honestly, we went around so many times, I'm kind of lost.
So all those in favor? Mr. Christopher, are you still there?
Aye.
I heard a distant aye. I'll be an aye, and Jake, you're
Nay.
great.
I think when you're making enormous decisions with land use, it should be in front of you and it should be in front of the public.
Okay. So good.
The next topic is the Monroe Wilson zone change in the Snowden area. And just as a reminder, I know you all know this, we can't talk about any substance. This is the only purpose of this meeting is to request that you schedule a public hearing. The way state law is written is that the SEPA is intended to be, any appeal of a SEPA is intended to be considered along with the recommendation from the plan. So that they're tied together. And the language in the RCW is a single consolidated hearing. I don't think consolidated is that word, but a hearing together on the two items. So we're proposing the 17th of September. The reason it's so far out is to give us the required time for newspaper notice and mail notice to all neighbors, as well as everybody who participated in the planning commission hearings or submitted any comments related to the SEPA. So that would be a hearing before you on both items. The way in working with the PA's office, we're proposing it would be a two-part hearing to clearly do the SEPA, take comments specifically on the SEPA appeal, and then have a public hearing on the recommendation from the planning commission on the zone change, and then you'd make a combined decision at the end on both items.
I like the plan.
Okay.
My concern is we're back to the 17th of September doing a night hearing, which is about the same thing as doing a night town hall. When it comes to my calendar.
We're proposing it for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I think.
You're only going to do a day hearing and not do a night hearing as well?
Well, I'd leave that open to the commission, what you would like to do it.
I don't think we've done that before, have we? Have we always just held it in the afternoon?
For SEPA appeals, when was the last time we did a combined SEPA appeal hearing? I don't remember the last.
That's a good question. All our other stuff we do too, but on this, I don't know that we've ever done one. So,
from what I've heard, I think that's accurate. And especially
yeah,
the zone change.
with that, I'm fine for just doing it at 1 o'clock and not a 2.
And honestly,
thank you.
if you're appealing a SEPA, 3 minutes for doing something and verbally is not a whole lot of time to make your case on appealing a SEPA determination. You would hope that it's all in written form.
And it's up to you. I think we put that in knowing that there's quite a bit of interest in this. If you don't want to have the 3-minute limit, we don't have to. I don't think the 3 minutes applies to public comment. It doesn't apply to who'd be considered the appellant, which I think is
Correct.
Roger. Gadway, the chair of the community council. So he would not be limited on time. He'd be able to present the full case, and then any other person would either submit writing or have their 3 minutes. But again, I don't think the planning commission limited it to 3 minutes when they took testimony, and there wasn't that much verbal testimony. It was mostly in writing. There may be 8.
I would make a recommendation to the board on this, that this is not just standard public comment, or, it's not the regular deal. I would hope that we would be able to extend comment at least to 5 minutes. If it takes us an extra half hour or something to get through, I'm more than happy to that, as long as the public gets to speak on the issue. So yeah, up to you guys, but I could extend time to 5 and not have a problem.
Good with that? Anything else? Are you through
No,
with?
but I don't know if that requires a vote or not to set the hearing, or if that's all in agreement. Okay. Great.
No, 17th works for me.
Okay, thank you.
We haven't fun yet.
I'm exhausted.
Come on.
No, it's all important stuff. It's good.
No, you're doing great.
Are you enjoying the differences between Oregon and Washington?
I am surprised how different it is. I really thought that it'd be much easier to just transition, but the SEPA is just, it's massive, the change that alone. Because everything in Oregon is just combined into the single decision. You have state agencies, you make findings in your decision. You don't have to separate SEPA, not a separate appeal. I find it cumbersome so far, honestly. But and other changes. I mean, all the agencies are different. Their level of participation is different. It's
Some GMA counties actually have the ability to incorporate it all together, more like how Oregon can.
okay.
But
And and the non-GMA aspect is really interesting as well. Such as, the lack of timeframes. In Oregon, we're very set, and GMA county is very set. You have to meet these timeframes. And that's something we want to get back to. We want internal timeframes because I mean, James Dean, that was been sitting there for a long time. Yeah, it's embarrassing and it's ridiculous. And it's just taking our time, and we need to get on ones like that. That's one of those that keeps me up at night thinking, man, we got to move through this.
Thank you.
We want to get to the point once we get, I'm getting my feet under me. Well, and we're catching up on a backload of projects slowly, I think. And once we have a new staff person on and move forward with that, of course, we're getting more and more work coming, it seems, with the grant funded project. But that we want to start working on internal deadlines to try to hold to those and even report on them and to hold ourselves accountable is what I like to do once we get going on that. I want to get through James Dean though first. I don't want that to go in my report. No, I'm joking, but we're meeting with him this week.
Thank you so much, Scott.
yeah, of course. Thank you for your time, Scott.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so miscellaneous reports, first aid CPR, Mr. Christopher.
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of open with a story. You all know about my heart attack 2 years ago. Over the weekend, I was told a story where I'm not going to go into details, but a gentleman showed up to work, punched in on his time clock, and hit the floor. Somebody across the shop heard the ruckus, went over, gentleman unconscious on the floor, 5 to 7 employees in the building. They did have one of the, what do they call them, IED defibrillators, but none of them knew how to work it. AED. They had a trained in CPR first aid employee, but they had let that employee go a year ago and hadn't retrained anybody new. So this gentleman who was in crisis on the floor had nobody in the building that knew what they were doing. They tried to do CPR. I would question how accurate they were until first responders showed up. First responders assumed control because they had tried to put the AED on and did it incorrectly. And last I heard is the gentleman was at a hospital, but no prognosis because CPR was done for about 25 minutes. We don't know if he got any breath or anything else. So I guess my point is, I would challenge anybody in the room to tell me when the last time the county held CPR and first aid training for their employees. And I'm talking more than just one employee in a department, because that employee, it might be on vacation at the time there's a need. I understand there are individuals like myself that are trained. But if individuals like myself are on vacation or go down, who's admitting the CPR? So I am going to ask the board to, I don't know if it would be HR or emergency management, to look into giving us information on what it would take or what the cost would be to bring in a professional that can train our staff. And I would say mandatory one person in each department, but anybody who wants to attend, to get our employees up to speed on where they probably should have been in the last 10 years. And I understand there might be a $2,000, $3,000 cost. But you look at it we're going through this transition with the jail. Are every member of the jail CPR and first aid trained, or all the deputies first aid? I mean, we need to do better. And I hope, even though this might be a small budget consideration, that you guys are on board to get either Jeff or HR to look at this and provide us with a recommendation going forward. And hopefully we can set some policy in place, because I may not be here next year, and I would like that next board to renew the training every year going forward. So anyway, that's my discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, do you have anything?
Can't hear.
Can't hear you.
We are part of Washington LNI's workman's comp that I believe provides some training. I'm not sure if first aid is in that, but it's might be something to check into.
So
As I said, I don't know if it would be Rob or Jeff.
Probably Jeff is my guess, would for coordination, maybe both of them together because of the employees. But for my wish for this, because of the lifestyle and our family business now for 46 years, we do it every year in our home for everyone. We offer for our neighbors to come for free. I have grandchildren that attend it. Everybody in a room should have a first aid CPR safety card, and it should be updated every year. I believe they're every 2 years, I think, on my card. But I have no problem saying yes to that. And I think it needs to be something that the county supplies as a benefit to their employees. It's a benefit for your family when you go home. It's a benefit on the road when you're out there by yourself. It's something that everybody should have. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. And it shocks me the number of people that don't even know CPR does not include breaths anymore. So that should tell you the last time they got their training. So yeah. Thank you. I will still listen to comment, but I will reach out to HR and Jeff, and hopefully they can give us some update going forward.
Scott came forward.
Oh, I just want to say I support it and want to brag that planning has a lifeguard on staff.
Yeah, they do.
Well, if you ever have a drowning in the planning department, you're set.
I have Swiftwater Rescue,
Drowning in
so we're in
paper.
good shape.
If the water cooler tips over, you are safe.
So it sounds to me like Commissioner Christopher is going to take the lead on this.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no, I will be happy to take the lead. I'm glad that your lifeguard up there, all joking aside, I can guarantee you she's trained in first aid and CPR, and she's probably taken it like me. CPR is an every year thing. First aid is now 2 years, and she's probably taken it every year for the last 20 years, just like I have, and just like it sounds like Lori has. So I have full faith and confidence in the planning department. If you're going to have a heart attack in the county, please do it in the planning department. Or in a commissioner room on Tuesdays. Those are the two places that I feel fully comfortable that you're going to get good treatment.
I warned Mr. Christopher because of his heart attack that I was probably the only one on this floor that knew how to use the shock machine.
So I will reach out to both of those and have them probably work together and present us with something. But thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
And just for the public record, many of our departments do first aid training and require it for their employees. And I believe some of the other electeds do as well. So it's not like everyone's running around with no training.
Void, but needs to be a concerted effort from our county, I think.
I agree. And I think it would be nice to have those certificates put in their employee files.
Yeah.
And even the Board of Commissioners signing I don't know, certificates of achievements and thanking them for their efforts would be a reward that doesn't cost us much.
And I would also, you might actually reach out to the health department because they probably have the right contacts for someone to come in and do the training.
Well, that's why I figured Jeff would be involved because most of the local training is done through EMS. We do them at the fire halls. Ambulance providers come and provide them. So I don't know if this is something they would reach out to, the Red Cross or something for, or locally. But yeah, they'll all know, and I'll keep them all in the
think you
loop,
might have
and
done.
and then I'll just hand it off to them, and they can brief us.
Thank you. I don't know if we have anything else on our schedule, do we? Anything miscellaneous for you, Mr. Anderson? Okay.
Anything other than I'm feeling better than I did this morning, so that must be a good thing.
That's good. So if there,
Madam Chair, without anything else on our agenda, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, noting that there shouldn't be any times that we all three get together this week.
Are we not doing budget on Thursday? I thought we were starting the week after the fair.
I didn't see it on this calendar for today.
Well, I thought that was the plan, is we were starting budget after the fair was over, so that's this week. So we need to confirm that before we check out.
29th on the calendar.
is that the date you have, Elisa? Well, that doesn't give us much time.
Well, they have been busy with other projects.
I don't know if you can hear that. Elisa had heard that it would be the beginning of September.
Okay, yeah, as long as there's nothing on Thursday, I thought that was the plan. So I will second Commissioner Anderson's motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Thanks.
Have a good day, everyone.